Hello and welcome to Mike's Garage. Sorry I haven't been back sooner, but I got a cop to something. I went to the doctor for my yearly exam. Doctor said, "You're doing fine." I thought that was good news. I mean, they did my blood test, everything looked cool, everything's fine. Doctor says, "I really wish you'd accept a flu shot." Now, I don't mean to complain or anything, but he did tell me that I really should have one. At my age, I could die if I got the flu and I didn't get a flu shot. Well, I certainly don't want to die, so okay, if that's what you really want to do, let's have a flu shot. I figured it's no big deal. I don't normally get the flu. I don't normally get common colds. Common colds are uncommon for me. I don't get that stuff. I take care of my immune system. I walk my dog every day. I mean, I'm basically a pretty healthy guy. Till after that flu shot, I was down for well over a week. I'm still getting the right marbles back in the right holes and things like that. I'm still getting a little dizzy and little things like that. But other than that, everything is fine anyway, so I didn't really feel like doing a video or a song and dance routine for that matter. But anyway, we're back and we're ready to work. And I've got this Evo motor almost done. We need to get on to something else, so we're almost done with the Evo motor. I want to say if you're enjoying our videos, please subscribe. And when you subscribe, be sure to click on that little bell symbol so that you're notified with an audible signal that there's a new video up. Okay, now you've decided I just had a cup of coffee and I sound like it, so let's get started. Here is this Evo motor that we've been working on for a while now, like almost complete, and it's looking pretty decent. We cleaned these heads up and reseated the valves, so everything's nice and fresh, nothing major. And what we want to do now is install the cylinder heads. Now, before installing the cylinder heads, I want to add a few thoughts to this. My usual, of course, cleanliness and godliness and all that sort of thing being synonymous. The cleaner, the better, and this stuff is washed and scrubbed and scrubbed and washed. Particularly care for all of the threads, all of these threads, because anything that you take care of now, you're not going to have to deal with later, like when you're assembling this thing. One of the things I use a lot is thread chasers, if you've probably heard me speak of them in the past. Instead of using taps and dies on these threads already exist. All they need really is a little clean out. And that's what these thread chasers are for. They're not for removing material. They're not for cutting. They're just for just straightening out those threads, and literally the word is chasing them to make them function as smoothly and nicely as possible. And I use thread chasers on all of these threaded holes, tapped holes, and especially on the exhaust studs, which are usually rusty, but to go over them with a 5/16 fine chaser to keep sure those threads are nice so that when you install your exhaust system, it doesn't get stuck and everything works well. You can go back later and tighten it up, cinch it down, knowing full well that the threads are in good shape. Same thing with the intake, where the intake manifold goes in. Go over the bolts and go through the holes with thread chasers. It's just good insurance and real good practice. Okay, that being said, the next thing, and I read this in a service manual years ago, and I'm not sure which Evo service manual it was, but on these long nuts, they are nuts because the studs go inside them. On these long nuts, after they're clean, the threads are all chased, everything is just lovely. Fill them full of oil. If you fill them full of oil and let them sit for half an hour before you put them in, they're going to be so nice. And it's really important because when you put a torque wrench on those things and you torque them down, you want a good, accurate reading from your torque wrench. So, that being said, I don't think I'm going to talk too much longer without doing something useful. So I'm going to take these tools off of these cylinders that I put on them to hold them in place. I don't even know where you buy these. I think somebody sells them, but they were a tool a friend of mine came up with years ago, and he gave me a set of them. I don't know who finally marketed them, but they're really nice for holding Evolution cylinders in place. Okay, so now we're going to put the gaskets in place. I'm going to put the rear head on first. Now, in using these MLS gaskets, for identifying purposes, I'm going to say these are Cometic MLS gaskets, multi-layer steel. And when I put them down and I put them over these little sleeves, the stock gaskets, the originals, require O-rings around those little sleeves. When you use these gaskets, they don't require the O-rings. You don't use those. Okay, the gasket looks like it's going to stay in place. And I'm going to get a couple, 3 of these nuts ready to go. I'm going to pour the oil out. And then I'm going to take the air hose and blow the oil out. You know, somebody didn't turn on the compressor. That would probably be me. So if you will excuse me momentarily, I'm going to go out and turn on the compressor. Now, if cameraman Mike was really entertaining, you got an eye full of something while I was gone. And here we go. Again, we're going to blow this thing out. And the reason we're blowing it out is we want to remove as much oil as we can. Because this thing is closed up, if we left a bunch of oil in it, would not be good. We would have a situation known as hydrolock. So, okay, I'm going to put this cylinder head on. The gasket is in place. And the head is on. And one nut is in place. Looking very carefully to make sure I put on the rear head on the rear cylinder. Sounds funny, but it's been done that way. Wrong. Okay. Take another one of these bolts, nuts. It's very hard to call one of these things a nut rather than a bolt, but it's a nut. Sometimes you feel like a nut. Again, very important that you blow the oil out of there. And wipe these off real nice and careful and install them. Well, that makes me pretty happy. This thing's starting to look like a real motor again. Now, one of the neat things about these nuts is they are 12-point half-inch, so it's no big deal to put them down with ease. Again, that oil on the threads and sitting there and soaking, they just go together so nicely. And that's what we're doing with them. I think I just blew oil all over the cameraman. Nothing like a happy cameraman. Let's see. You know, the Evolution motor was the first Harley motor I'd ever worked on that cylinder head actually bolted down from the top instead of up from around the cylinder. That was something I had to adjust to. Okay. Stay. And now we have all 4 bolts in place. Well, that's one of the reasons you want to make sure you don't tighten any of them. Till it's time. There we go. All right. That being said, what do we got here? I think what we'll do is we'll get out the directions, because we're going to do this according to the directions of the gasket supplier. Now, normally when I put these heads, when I mount these cylinder heads, what I've always done is mount them according to Harley Davidson, which is fine if you're using the original gaskets supplied by Harley. If you're using gaskets that are supplied by someone else and you want them to seal, my thought has always been to go with the recommendations of that manufacturer. And the manufacturer says, and of course they said not to use the O-rings in there. Okay. Snug all the head bolts finger tight. In sequence, tighten all head bolts to 9 pounds. All right, 9 pounds. So let's start with 9 pounds. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. There's 9 pounds. Okay. Let's see. Would be this one here. I'm going to turn this motor so you can see it real clear here, Mike. Which means that hopefully everyone else can too. There's one at 9 pounds. Two at 9 pounds. Three at 9 pounds. And 4 at 9 pounds. Okay. Then in sequence, tighten all head bolts to 14 pounds. Okay, we can do that. And there is 14 pounds on the torque wrench. And so here is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now, after you get them to 14, they want you to go to 22. 22, okay. We can do that. 20, 21, 22. I can see I'm going to have to do something like this. 1, 2, there we go like this. 3, 4. Okay, now that's 22 pounds. Then in sequence, tighten all head bolts to 35 pounds. Well, gee. The idea of this is they're going to get it really, really nice and even. And again, all those threads being clear and clean means that everything's going to be more accurate and well worth the effort. Didn't take that much effort, really. So here we go. 35. 1. 2. 3. 4. Now the final tightening on this is going to be 42 pounds. I'm just checking the microphone cord here. I'm getting out of breath. I don't know if I can do this. I mean, really. Okay. There it is. 40, 41, 42. It's not a question whether or not I can pull this thing. It's a question whether or not I can hang on to it and pull it. So we're going to find out here. One. Not too bad. 2. I'll try that again. 3 and 4. Okay, there it is, 42 pounds. And that takes care of tightening that head down. And it looks good. So we have one more to do, which I don't think we need to do in front of everybody because we've already done one. There's no reason you should sit through another one. I'd like to mention a couple other little things, however. After this, of course, the next video will go into assembling the rocker arms and push rods and all that sort of stuff onto these heads, which is not a big deal. I just need to wash all that stuff before I show how to do it. I can't put it together dirty. It all has to be cleaned up, but we have everything to do it with. The other thing I wanted to mention is a few weeks ago we went to the swap meet in Torrance, which was the El Camino College swap meet, which is an old swap meet full of antique bikes and antique people. Not antique people, antique people. That means like the people are antiques. Me and my friends, we had a great time. And the next swap meet show, all of it, because it's not just a swap meet, it's a show, just like El Camino is, but this is a big one. And it's coming up December 8th in Ventura, California, at the fairgrounds on the beach. This is called Chopper Fest. And Chopper Fest is basically a big tribute to the late, great David Mann. the finest motorcycle artist of all time, and certainly one of my favorite artists. Actually, one of my favorite people too, but we don't have David anymore. And the show is really awesome. People come from all over the world to go to it. And we will be there, and hopefully you will too. So I just wanted to mention that. And again, we'll finish up this motor here pretty quick and then get on to the next thing. So be seeing you soon. Hopefully see you at Chopper Fest. Hopefully see you on video before then. And until then, see you out on the road.